Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the March 10th, 2022 meeting of the Board of Directors of the Thompson-Nicola Regional District. The TNRD acknowledges that we connect with many First Nations communities across our vast regional district, and today we're located on the Tk'emlúps-Secwépemc territory, situated within the unceded ancestral areas of the Secwépemc Nation. The TNRD appreciates the partnership that we have with Tk'emlúps-Secwépemc and respect the territory and land on which we gather today. The Thompson-Nicola Regional Library had a successful soft launch of mobile library service at Linton's Cumsheen, sorry, can't see it, elementary school, I presume, on February 25th. The next stop is March 18th, 2 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. and all community members are welcome to drop by. In terms of upcoming meetings and events, we have on the 28th of just a second here. I had a bit of eye surgery, so I'm having a bit of difficulty with some of these because I've got one eye that's corrected and one eye that isn't. 23rd, we have a policy review committee meeting. On March 24th, a hospital district board meeting. That will be to deal with the budget. We have a regular board meeting in the afternoon on March 24th. April 20th, there's a utilities committee meeting and an economic development and recreation committee meeting. On April 21st, we have the regional solid waste management committee meeting and a regular board meeting in the afternoon, followed on the 22nd of April by a meeting of the committee of the whole. Today in your blue folders, you will find any mail personally addressed to you. Are there any additions to or deletions from the agenda? Seeing none, I'll move to minutes. There are minutes here from the regular board meeting on February 24th, 2022, and a recommendation.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor? Is anyone opposed? That's carried. That takes us to election and assent voting bylaw number 2764. I hope. And I'm going to ask Ms. Campbell to speak to that.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to take a moment just to provide a bit of an update on the local government election in general, since that seems to be the talk lately, and staff have been working really hard on planning and putting together a work plan. And part of that planning process involves updating our assent and elections bylaw. As the board may be aware, the Local Government Act was recently amended to expand eligibility of mail ballot voting. This was a temporary measure that was allowed during COVID-19, and local governments have seen a lot of value in it. So in order to be able to do that for the upcoming election, we had to make amendments to our bylaw. So now anyone is eligible to vote by mail, and we had quite a bit of uptake on this when we had a referendum during the COVID pandemic. And so I think we'll see a lot of uptake for the 2022 local government election as well. We're also working with our communications team to get our elections page up and running on our website. And that's going to be a hub where we can share helpful and important information for both voters and for candidates. Elections are a lot of work, but they're also a lot of fun. It's a really exciting time right now, and staff are going to work really hard to successfully carry out our local government election in October.
Thanks, Ms. Campbell. Elections are a lot of work, and you mentioned a lot of fun. I'm sure that you'll point out to us when the fun part comes. There are 3 recommendations. Oh, and Director Schaefer.
I'd just like to ask, last election, I'm pretty sure it was the library that went around and did advanced pollings in my area anyways. I don't think it did it all. Are they going to continue to do that this time?
We do plan to do the mobile polling and some pop-up polling stations as well.
Thank you. As I say, there are 3 recommendations.
Move one.
Is there any discussion? All in favor? Is anyone opposed? That's carried.
Move number 2.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Anyone opposed? Carried. Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? I see none. All in favor? That's carried. That takes us to reports. And the first report is a verbal report from our CAO, Mr. Hildebrand.
Thank you, Chair Gillis. I'm excited to start to bring back some normalcy to my CAO board updates and would like to highlight a variety of projects, initiatives, and plans that we are currently working on. Although the COVID-19 pandemic, fires, flood recovery work, and the BDO forensic audit committee continue to be part of our work, we are starting to see a shift back to our more traditional local government work, which makes me quite happy. The time has come to start to communicate and share some of the great work that has been going on in the background and been focused on by our staff for a number of months. We have a very capable and dedicated and committed team that continues to work hard and show progress against our strategic plan, along with many other board and community priorities. We have many new faces on our team and a few more vacancies that we have yet to fill, but I'm very excited about the future and the results that this team can deliver. I wanted to just take a few moments and highlight 6 key areas of focus that are a priority within the organization right now. They're in no particular order, but still some very critical information within each. It goes, number 1 would be the recovery work as it continues. Number 2, budget 2022, of course, is critically important. Communication is number 3. Number 4 is the upcoming election that Ms. Campbell just spoke to. Number 5, the BDO forensic audit response. And then finally, number 6 is our strategic plan. So firstly, the recovery work. So this is ongoing and remains really important work as we support our residents and communities that have been impacted by fires and flooding. Our EOC and the dedicated members of our emergency operations team have done an amazing job in 2021 and have gone over and above to provide the necessary support and services that many residents that were evacuated needed. Both Jamie and Kevin continue to work on our recovery efforts and are the link between Emergency Management BC and those in need. We continue to support residents and landowners significantly impacted by flooding in the Highway 8 corridor area, some of which are still displaced, but we continue to do everything possible to help. Work continues with debris management and supporting cleanup for all communities in the areas impacted by wildfires and flooding. We continue to work closely with our friends in the village of Lytton and in fact have a meeting set up to discuss further support and collaboration between our organizations. The TNRD did own part of the town hall in the library, of course, which needs to be part of a discussion for the rebuild. As I mentioned, the second item was our budget for 2022. So our financial plan for 2022 is critical in guiding our work and our priorities and continuing to deliver against the many services that our regional district provides. Mr. Ray and his team have been working very closely with our current financial audit team that's in place right now, while at the same time finalizing our 22 budget for the board to consider at the next meeting. A large percentage of the changes and improvements within the budget reflect discussions and decisions of the board of directors from over the last number of months. Our focus was on efficiency, expense management, and services, but we continue to struggle like everybody in BC and around the world with respect to commodity pricing and inflation. Currently, we're proposing a 3 to 4% tax increase based on our specific needs, which also seems to be quite consistent with many municipalities across Western Canada. Thirdly, communication. We have a new manager in Colton Davies leading this important department and will continue to provide timely and accurate information about our organization. He is currently working on an annual report that should be out in May of 2022. We're planning, and we talked at the earlier EA committee meeting this morning about a new TNRD newsletter that will be coming out in September and will be out twice a year going forward. Increased website and social media focus, the forensic audit and strategic plan dashboard and results. We're increasing board meeting information and media releases, and we're also working on the early stages of preparing for the election as noted earlier. A strategy to enhance the general awareness of who the TNRD is and what we do is also part of that strategic plan. So that's exciting to come. Fourthly, would be the upcoming election. Ms. Campbell will be speaking to that probably a bit more in our upcoming topics, but of course, this is certainly a hot topic right now in the community, and it's something that we are planning for and making the necessary steps to make sure everything is running smoothly. The fifth topic is the BDO forensic audit response. We have already made significant strides, as you all know, over the last 2 years in closing the gaps and making the changes in policy that were required. We're making great progress on necessary policy and process changes within our business operations and getting full cooperation from both the board and our staff. We have a lot of work ahead of us on the finance and people components of our business, but we're making good progress as well. So communicating these changes, training our staff and the board, and holding everyone accountable to these changes will be the key in their priorities going forward. And then finally, our 2020 and 2022 strategic plan. Just want to give a bit of an update on that one. We continue to make solid progress with greater than 78% of our goals being complete or in progress. Some examples within our strategic plan that we're making good headway on would be number one would be our First Nations engagement strategy, remains one of our top priorities. We recently had a very productive Zoom conversation with the Kamloops to Secwepemc leadership and the TNRD board and staff members. Well, we look forward to reaching out and connecting with our First Nation partners throughout the region and building upon strong and collaborative relationships. There's been a lot of talk and discussion about fire halls. There's a new Loon Lake fire hall that is in the process of being started. We are working closely with Tobiano for a fire hall replacement there. Renovations and updates in McClure, Vavenby and Blackpool, and of course the Monty Creek one that's coming up for referendum in the near future. Water system upgrades in Pritchard, Black Pines, and Blue River. The Cache Creek Eco Depot will be complete this year. Exploring the opportunity of a new Southwest Kamloops area library, along with some upgrades at the Ashcroft Library. Exploring the opportunity and viability of a Kamloops area-based film studio. Our civic building is going to receive some upgrades, some maintenance work and renovations, which will also be complete this year. We're exploring some huge opportunities with connectivity and internet services throughout our regional district, which continues to be very encouraging. And then finally, park and recreation enhancements within the regional district. For example, Smith Pioneer is one of those examples. So lots of exciting work and a lot of exciting projects going on within the regional district. And my hope is to continue to share updates on that going forward within my CAO update. So if I could pass that back to you, Chair Gillis, to see if there's any questions about my update. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Hildebrand. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Hildebrand? I don't see any. Were you going to speak with respect to the Film Commission? Thank you.
Yes, I will do that. A late addition to the agenda was just a film report by our film commissioner. So I'm just going to read what she's provided. The movie of the week, called Single and Ready to Jingle, is filming in the region right now. Another feature film about two brothers driving across the US is slated to film around Spence's Bridge, Ashcroft, and Kamloops. It has been rescheduled from filming in March to filming in May. There are 4 other films slated to film in the region in the near future. The Film Studio Committee is scheduled to meet next week to determine a strategy before seeking investors. The Film Commission acquired funding from Creative BC to hold an online film training for free. So far, more than 60 persons have participated. The last classes are being held this Saturday and Sunday. The North Island College and Regional Film Commission training from GRIP, Lighting and Construction ended last week. It was tuition-free 6-week online and in-person skills training course that was offered to the TNRD residents. About 15 people from the region participated. The film commissioner will participate in a panel about filmmaking in the region during this Saturday's Kamloops Film Festival. The film commissioner is also slated to speak at SILGA about the filmmaking in the region, along with the film commissioners from the Columbia-Shuswap Regional District and the Okanagan Film Commission. And finally, just an update, the window to apply for the film commissioner position closes on March 14th. So far, we have about 15 applicants and are working through that program, that process. that's the update from Vicky. Thank you.
Thanks very much. That takes us to item 6.1.2, the general local election appointment and of election officials. Pardon me. Sorry, Director Singh and Director Laird.
Oh, sorry, Chair Gills. I just wanted to say that the movie called Single and Ready to Jingle is a great name. I just hope it's the right category of the video store, not the one that I'm thinking about, but it's I just love that name. I just wanted to remark on that. It's just, that's a great name for a movie. That's all I wanted to say.
Thanks, Director Singh. Director Laird?
I was just moving the recommendation.
Second.
Sorry, is there any discussion with respect to the recommendation on 6.1.2? Seeing none, all in favor? Is anyone opposed? No one's opposed, that's carried. That takes us to the contract amendment with respect to electoral area J. And I understand that Mr. Vieira is going to speak to that. Are you surprised by that, Mr. Vieira?
I was expecting questions, but I could speak to it if you want, or is there? I guess I'll give a brief overview on it. So the contract, I'll give a bit of background. So the recommendation to amend the contract, this is a bit of an odd scenario, but the situation is that when the contract was awarded in 2020, it was based on a competitive RFP process. So this contract amendment is to the same company that won the competitive process. Now, in their proposal, they gave two options for pricing, one being using our purchasing and using the old garbage collection truck, buying it off us and using it as their primary vehicle, and a second option of purchasing a new vehicle. And both of those associated a separate monthly operational fee into them. So this is switching from the option A in their proposal to option B in the proposal. So there's no additional or change in pricing from their original proposal, and it's not being backdated. It's effective the date that the new truck arrives. So we're actually fortunate in the sense that the contractor is holding their proposal pricing that they originally submitted, even though the contract term is now shortened under the new amendment that's proposed.
Thank you, Director Watson.
Besides being a little gobsmacked at the amount here, this garbage pickup is for part of Area J, right?
Yes.
And does something like that have to go to a referendum or some kind of a local vote that the taxpayers in an area agree for that to happen?
Typically, yes, but in this scenario, this service was established under the authority of the Solid Waste Management Plan, the 2008 Solid Waste Management Plan, that included developing these kind of services, and that public process gave us the ability to establish the service. But typically a new service like this, which is a separate service outside the Solid Waste Management Service, would go to public assent.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Mr. Vieira? Director Elliott. I was looking for questions. Are there, but there is a recommendation. Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion, any further discussion? Director Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say that our truck in 2006, we bought that truck, has done 3 days a week, every week for all these years, and it is still going most of the time. And the staff and myself have come up with this ability to get a new one, and hopefully that it would carry on. The people in my area are still very satisfied with it. And just in case Director Watson wants to know, the people who don't have curbside service have equal amounts of money given to them in tickets to go to the dump site. Jamie, help me out here. I don't know how to express it.
Yeah, the service funds the operation at two small transfer stations that would have otherwise been closed as part of that 2008
Yes,
solid waste
thank
management plan.
You wanted to brag about that truck that's been running since 2006. It must be a Mack. Is there any further discussion? I'm not seeing any. So all in favor? Anyone opposed? Director Watson, is anyone else opposed? No one else opposed? That's carried. So the Loon Lake Community Water System, there's a recommendation that $18,000 from the Canada Community Building Fund be allocated to electoral area E, be approved for, or pardon me, to fund the supply and installation of an automatic transfer switch. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Is anyone opposed? No one's opposed, that's carried. Building permit activity report. Second. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. That takes us to committees. The Audit Committee, Director Rain.
No meeting, no report.
Economic Development, Director Roden.
No meeting, no report.
Electoral Area Directors, Director Kershaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had a very good meeting this morning. There'll be some report and recommendations coming to our next meeting.
Thank you. Emergency Management and Protective Services, Director Watson.
Yes, thank you. Last fall, we had a meeting with Wildfire BC and we were somewhat promised an update at the beginning of this year. And I'm wondering if we can get on this because the wildfire season is nigh. And no meeting, no report.
Thank you. Did you make a note of that, Ms. Campbell? Okay, thank you. Policy review.
Chair Gill.
Sorry. Oh, Mr. Vieira, sorry.
So we have planned to invite Wildfire to give us an update at the next Emergency Management Committee meeting, which is in May. If you'd like us to request them to appear as a delegation to the board prior to that, we could make that request.
I would think that our fire season will start before me. Thank you.
To policy review, Director Sinclair.
No meeting. Next meeting is Wednesday, March 23rd at 10 a.m.
Thank you. Regional Solid Waste Management, Director Schaefer.
No meeting, no report. Next meeting, April the 21st.
Thank you. Invasive Plant Management Committee, Director Kershaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had a regional meeting on March the 3rd, and we had a meeting yesterday of the full board, and there will be a report coming to next meeting on that also.
Thank you. Thompson Regional Hospital District Director Christian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you mentioned, our next meeting is on March the 24th. And as you also mentioned, we will be dealing with the budget then, but we have delegations. There are three of them. Dr. Carol Fenton will address us on the status of the waning pandemic, I hope. And we're going to hear from Diane Shendrick, who's the new vice president of IHA, who's located here in Kamloops. And we'll be having a presentation from the Ray Fawcett Breast Health Clinic.
Thanks so much. I'll look forward to that presentation from with respect to the Ray Fawcett matter. Director Stamer.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Chair. To Chair Christian, is there any possible way of getting Interior Health to give us a more updated review on the MRI? I know that in Ms. Brown's letter last week, she alluded to the fact that she's supposedly given information to Mr. Hildebrand. I'm wondering if they have any additional information at that time.
I believe Mr. Hildebrand does.
Yeah, I had a conversation with Corey from Interior Health, and he will be bringing that information forward in anticipation of your questions.
Thank you. Anything further on that? Hey, Utilities Systems Committee Director Elliott.
No meeting, first meeting of the year on April 20th.
Thank you. Thompson Headwaters Services Director Quinn. Wells Gray Country Services Director Schaefer.
No meeting, next meeting is April 19th.
And Joint Services Committee Director Schaefer.
No meeting, next meeting, April the 11th.
That takes us to External Fraser Basin Council Director Rice.
Operations meeting this morning, minutes to follow at the next meeting.
Thank you. Municipal Finance Authority Director O'Reilly.
No meeting, Mr. Chair, but coming up on March 23rd to 24th, the annual general meeting's happening and a financial forum that I'll be attending. So I will not be at the Thompson-Nicola Hospital District, but I'll be reporting back after that. Thank you.
Thank you. Municipal Insurance Director Duty.
Thank you, Chair. No meeting, but just want to announce that there's a new CAO to take over from longtime CAO Tom Barnes. He was with the MIABC for many, many years. Her name is Megan Charlton, and she's a former public school teacher, then became a lawyer for a number of years. And she brings a strong sense of collaboration and commitment to the MIABC. So I look forward to meeting with her.
Yes, that'll be interesting. Thanks very much. Shuswap Watershed, I think it's Director Christian who's going to speak to that today.
Thank you. Their meeting was yesterday. There were a couple of items that would be of interest to the board. First of all, the adjudication of the grant program. You may have seen that advertised. 2 grants were awarded, one to the Gardam Lake Watershed Restoration Society for a demonstration project on watersheds and their management. And then the other one was for bank stabilization to a company called the Stump Ranch, not Stump Lake Ranch, but the Stump Ranch out of the Malaqua Sycamoose area, talking about erosion control. Those amounted to about $53,000, and I voted in favor of those as part of their financial voting requirement on behalf of Director Crow and myself. The other item was the approval of the budget. The budget for the Shuswap Watershed Coalition for 2022 is $426,000, of which our share is in and around $53,000, and it has been declining for a number of years. And I would take any questions beyond that.
Does anyone have any questions arising from Director Christian's report? Director Schaefer.
Can you tell me why it's declining?
Largely because of the effect of the pandemic. A number of the projects that they had been doing, a lot of the education projects and things like that have been deferred, and they have subsequently adjusted their budget, and then they reallocate it around the participating partners. The biggest partner there is the Columbia Shuswap Regional District, obviously, and then the city of Salmon Arm, and then the TNRD is a small partner in that initiative.
Anything further? See any Kamloops Airport Authority Director Roden.
Thank you. We had a meeting this morning. There will be a report forthcoming. I think the mood around the table, cautious optimism. Is that fair to say? Lots of talk about the pandemic and how it has affected not only YKA, but airports across the country. And the idea that feeling that we will not hit 2019 levels again until 2024 is still prevalent, and that is a standard across the industry, not unique to Kamloops.
Wow. And FCM, Director Singh.
Thank you, Chair Gillis. The FCM board did complete virtual meetings the last couple of weeks. We had our board meeting actually a week ago. So a couple of things to report from a TNRD perspective. Money coming more for rural transportation options, rural broadband. I think I mentioned before, I had occasion to see the Minister of Rural Economic Development when I was in Ottawa in November at the FCM meeting, and she sounds like a very, very keen individual to sort of work with regions across the country. So there's ever an opportunity to invite her to come and present to the board or some sort of letter, that might be a good idea. We had discussions around many things. I'm happy to answer any questions either now or later on from board members, but ones that stand out right now in my mind are housing and immigration. Also to say that the FCM elections are coming up again in the summertime at the annual meeting in Regina. I'll get to Regina in a second, but I wanted to note that FCM does their third vice president. It rotates across the country to region and province. And so BC has our chance to elect somebody for third vice president this year. I'm not running for that position. I'm running in for director at large. So that's an interesting opportunity for us to have someone, as always, our space on the FCM table officer board for the province. I did want to talk a little bit about the annual convention in Regina. There's a few of us who are going on behalf of TNRD this year. Really, I think a critical opportunity for us to get together again. There'll be a hybrid option, there'll be an online option as well. If people can go, personally, that's always a good idea because there's lots of opportunities there to help shape federal government policy, quite frankly, on a number of different issues. So one that comes to mind, obviously, is emergency management and climate action, as we talked about last meeting. Two more things. One at FCM, I have a Ukrainian flag on my Zoom background today because I was just listening to some folks at the FCM board talk about the work that we've done as a government nationally with our Ukrainian partners and thinking about them as they're going through this very, very horrible time there. So I'll stop that. The last thing is sort of an addition to something else that I'm involved with. Have been invited from the SFU Center for Dialogue to come and give a little participation on a conversation they're having on public hearings, so what government's doing on public hearings provincially, and looking actually also for a representative from the TNRD, and I can't go both days. It's 7th and 8th of April. So if there's anybody on the board, especially an EA director, who might want to come and talk about public hearings from your perspective, I'd be more than happy to connect you with the person at SFU, the Center for Dialogue, and see if the time works for you. With that, Chair Gillis, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Director Singh arising from his report? I don't see any, Director Singh. So
okay,
thank you for that. That takes us to Community Energy Association, Director Block.
There's a meeting that started 3 minutes ago. Obviously, I'm in conflict, so I won't be attending. But I do note on the agenda or on the invitee list that Mr. Story is still listed as the staff contact for TNRD. So maybe we need to find somebody else for that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure that'll be fixed. That takes us to correspondence. There are 4 items of correspondence for information only. Is there anything arising from them? Anyone wish to move that they be received?
So moved.
No discussion? All in favor? Anyone opposed? That's carried. That brings us to new business from members. To start with, we have Director Quinn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I promised last meeting, there's a letter that I sent to the Premier and to Minister Farnsworth about Little House Warriors and Blue River.
Sorry, Director Quinn, can you lean forward a bit?
How's that? As I alluded to last meeting, there's a copy of the letter I sent to the Premier and Mr. Farnsworth about the Little House Warriors and Blue River. It's pretty well self-explanatory. I asked for an action plan within 30 days, which puts it out to March the 13th. The reply came back and was sent to you by email. Thank you for your email. We appreciate your sharing the attached letter from Electoral B Director Stephen Quinn regarding the Tiny House Warriors. We have been in contact with the Ministry of Public Safety and Solicitor General and have requested they follow up with me directly. Be sure the appropriate ministry official will respond at their earliest opportunity. It's really interesting language, as they didn't answer the question about an action plan. And I actually directed the thing to the Premier, so why would he suggest it was copied? I eagerly await a response by the 18th of March. We'll see how that unfolds, and that's just to keep you updated. Thank you.
Thanks, Director Quinn. Is there any other new business from directors? Director Rice?
Let me unmute. Not really new business and stuff like that. I got too much old business in my head right now, but I did want to say that I got to go into the house on 4 wheels for the first time onto the farm. Of course, we are the first to go in from the Spencer's Bridge side, because we're closest to Spencer's Bridge. And I'm excited to report, I was told yesterday by the highway lead that BC Hydro will have hydro in tomorrow. And Paulette and I and Ryan and her brother and our 5 dogs are thankful that we think we're going to move home on Sunday on a permanent basis. Because that's what's at 114 days later after we've been out. So we're excited about that. And the last thing I'd like to say is if anybody's interested, this is brought to my attention by a fellow director that they might wish to see the devastation. And I don't think you can get appreciated up unless you get up close and personal, because there'll be a dead end or just past the fruit stand where the road drops off 10 feet. There is no road, and the rebuild there is going to take months because they're actually in the process. Went out yesterday just to take a peek, to drive out there, and they're actually got an excavator and equipment out there on the sandbar rerouting the river. They have to move the river about 100 feet to the south and in order to build the road. So they won't be building the road past our fruit stand until they get the river rerouted. Then they'll start the road rebuild. But there is an opportunity. I've cleared it with the head guy there on the road. If anybody's interested in coming and taking a look from the board, we have to get a vehicle and bus them out there, probably from the packing house, and then we'll go down there and come down to the farm and see exactly how much this river has changed in the landscape and all the damage and carnage that's been done. And I would welcome anybody if they're interested to get a hold of me and see if I'm going to need 1 or 2 buses to get out there. I hope some would be interested in coming out there and seeing it, because I don't think you can really appreciate the damage and the horrific amount of damage that's been done and the amount of work that has to be done until this road gets rebuilt, which will probably be another year until they get it completely done. So I just wanted to throw that out there. That trip will probably be happening in the next 3 weeks, within the next 3 weeks. So if you're interested, just please let me know. Thank you.
Thanks, Director Rice. I'm wondering, well, in the first place, I'm glad to hear you're going to be able to go back home. That must be a tremendous relief. But I'm also wondering, will you be able to do any planting or seeding, or is that off the table for this year?
No, actually, we were not planning on doing it, but you need to be in by about March the 15th to get it done. You got to do the sweet peppers first, and they got to be in by that time. So Ryan and I are making a trip to Kamloops tomorrow to celebrate our 9th grandchild's 4th birthday on Saturday, and we've been picking up soil. And the first thing when we get back on Sunday is we're going to get the hothouse going. And yes, we're going to have a harvest. Now, keep in mind the fruit stand won't be able to open because only local traffic will be allowed there. The people that live there will only be the ones. So we're setting up plans to have a little fruit stand at the packing house, and we're going to put in about maybe a half farm this year and stuff like that. Thank you for asking.
Thank you for that report. Good luck with it.
Thanks.
Is there any other new business from members? Director Roden.
Thank you. I just want to note that Art Exposed is on through Saturday at the old courthouse, and the organizers announced the awards in various artistic categories. And I noticed on the press release that the award winner, first place for Emerging Artist 3D, was a lady by the name of Regina Sadalkova for an artwork called Bat Lamp number 3, I believe. So just worth noting that we have people hiding their lights under a bushel amongst us.
Thanks, Director Roden. Director Brown.
Just a reminder for everyone that the Hell or High Water fundraiser is on this weekend on the 13th. It's a 12-hour between 10 a.m. 10 p.m. and it's covering all fires and floods in our region. So it's a great fundraiser, and
That's it.
Thank you for the reminder, Director Watson.
To Director Brown, when they advertise this, it's for Princeton, Merritt, Lytton and Abbotsford, and they don't talk about the surrounding areas or Highway 8. And it kind of gets me. They may not talk about it, but it's there.
Okay, thank you. Is there any further new business from members? I don't see any, so that takes us to item number 10, a notice of motion from Director Blackwell.
Yes, this was presented at the last meeting. It's been slightly revised to take out some language that might have put us, I guess, in a little bit of legal jeopardy. I think we need to make a formal apology, and that's why I'm putting this forward. We haven't done that to this point to staff, citizens, and everybody else involved in this. So do I move it?
Second.
I'll move it, second it.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Director Schaefer.
I'd just like to say I don't agree with this motion. We as a board of directors were not made aware of the previous misgivings until it was brought forward to the board. These were operational and beyond our control until the time when the operational transparency action were presented to the board of directors. I believe that when we were made aware, we acted promptly and appropriately within our powers and continue to do so. An apology engages the board in the problem and links us directly to being part of the problem rather than being part of the solution, and hence working on behalf of our constituents. An apology will present a picture that we were compliant with the actions for years when we were truly unaware. By apologizing, we remove the blame from past leadership and failure of the operational department to run an ethically and morally institution. I would prefer we acknowledge to the public the prompt actions the board did take to right the wrong and therefore put a stop to the abuse of operational funds and hence taxpayers' dollars.
Thanks, Director Schaefer. Director O'Reilly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to Director Blackwell for putting this forward. Is this going to change anything or do anything? No, it won't. But it is the right step for us to move forward. Sometimes it's difficult to look in the mirror, but as stated, it was boards over a very long period of time how we got to this point. And I think, again, this is not an easy thing to do, but it's the right thing to do. Is it going to change the world? No, but it is the right thing to do. It's what the residents of the TNRD deserve. And I'm fully on board, and I really support this motion. Thank you, Director.
Director Watson.
Thank you very much. Canada has an Apology Act, and apologizing for something is an expression of sympathy or regret. It does not admit guilt.
Thanks, Director Watson. Director Rice.
Yeah, I am glad it's brought forward. I'll be supporting this because it is the right thing to do, as Director O'Reilly pointed out. And also, we're all in, whether you aware or not aware of certain things, it doesn't matter. It's the right thing to do because to some degree, we're all in this together. And I think we need to really stand up and say, hey, we're sorry. I'm certainly sorry. So I will be supporting this.
Thank you, Director Singh.
Thank you, Chair Gillis. Want to thank Director Blackwell for raising this, and I also want to thank Director Schaefer for her comments. I think that this is, I thought a lot about, the question of whether it's, complicity or ignorance or what it was. I think that, I think we've always tried to move with very high integrity. And, when we were aware of the issue, we certainly address it. I think the sort of potential lack of policy framework beforehand, was the problem. I don't think that's something that we can be, we can certainly are complicit about, but I think it's something we could definitely apologize for. And certainly, obviously throughout the whole piece, there have been some unforced errors we've made ourselves over the time, and that's going to happen in something of this complexity and of this sort of like public scrutiny, I would say. So, I mean, I do think it's a good move. I certainly feel sorry myself for any lack of understanding I had initially about policy frameworks we could have put in place. Having the chair and vice chair sign the CEO's expenses as an example, having a very good whistleblower policy is another example. Those are things that did not exist before, and now they do exist. That's a really good thing. But I think Director Blackwell, I think has it's very heartfelt kind of concerns around what we didn't have before, and I share those concerns. I don't think Director Trevor's point that it means that anybody was acting in bad faith before 2018 or wherever we became aware of this stuff. I think it's more a question of understanding as a board, we have a collective responsibility to move forward. And this is one way we can help do that, as Director Rice was saying, in the best way possible. So those are my comments. Chair Gillis, thank you.
Thanks, Director Singh. Director Duty.
Thank you, Chair. This isn't the first time in history that groups haven't come along and apologized for past wrongs that have come about without them having any control over. And I think it's just something that we do. We recognize that there have been people that have not been treated properly in the past and or other things have been done, that we try to at least say we're sorry on behalf of the actions of the past people. And one of the things that I heard a number of years ago at an LGLA meeting that we were at was one of the people from the MIABC, I believe it may well have been their CEO at the time, had said, "We're Canadian. How hard is it to say we're sorry?" So I think we should follow that lead.
Thanks, Director Duty. Director Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am not going to support this motion. I think that the board did everything that they would normally have done throughout the time if this had not shown up because of other reasons. And so I feel really strongly that we don't have anything to apologize for, but I do feel that we need to tell the public that we are moving forward, that we have made changes, and that we will be very trustworthy in keeping the changes going, and it won't happen again. So I'm not going to support the apology.
Thank you. Director Rothenberger.
I'll support the apology. I think it's important to remember that the board has been part of this situation. It isn't just something that happened over there and we had nothing to do with it. This board has a long record of being generous to itself, and that the board has been involved in expenses which probably could have been handled in a tighter fashion. So, and I think that's covered by the third clause there, the board's responsibility in acknowledging its own role in this. And I think that's important, an important part of it. So that's the reason I would support it.
Is there any further discussion before I comment? I had some difficulty with it myself for a number of reasons, but it's been pointed out to me that we are a continuous board. In other words, we are the board that in one sense, we are the board that has sat in these chairs since 1967. And I don't think we can shirk the responsibility that we assumed from past members of this board. And so although I do have some reservations about our apologizing for everything all the time, I am going to support the notice of motion. Is there any further discussion? I'm seeing Director Singh, is your hand up there by accident?
It's not, Chair Gillis. So I just one last thing, if I may. I think that this is kind of a both and approach, not an either or approach. We have done a lot of good work with the recommendation set we are currently implementing. That's Dr. Schaefer, Dr. Elliott's point. I totally agree with that. But I think that we can do both. And it doesn't really hurt us in the sense that, you know, again, to the chair's point, you know, we do have a continuous responsibility, and the board does turn over. So when the board does stay constant, even as it turns over, I would say. So this is an important piece, I think, and I certainly don't want to try to, you know, lobby too hard, Dr. Elliott, to support it. But I think that that's my thinking. And if it helps at all, there it is.
I'm sorry, Director Swan.
Thank you. To your point, Chair Gillis, regardless of how long we've sat in these chairs, we are the board. And if nothing else, we owe it to our staff to apologize for what they've been through and for not taking action sooner. Yes, we took action when everything became apparent. We've done a lot since then, but our staff went through hell, pardon my language, and we owe an apology to them, if no one else. Thank you.
Thanks, Director Swan. Director Bass.
Thank you. And thank you, Merlin. To me, the most important words in this entire notice of motion are a public commitment to earning their trust back through strong oversight and good governance going forward. And for that reason, if not for every other reason that I'm going to vote for it, I'm doing it for that.
Thank you. And I want to thank Director Singh because he reminded me of, well, first I want to thank Director Swan because I think, yes, the matter of acknowledging a difficult time that our staff went through, I think that's very, very important. I quite agree with that. And Director Singh mentioned the good things we've done. And I'm sure that now that we've embarked upon what appears to be an 8-month long election campaign, there'll be plenty of time to speak about the good things we've done. So is there any further discussion? Director Quinn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are we actually talking about a motion or still talking about a notice of motion?
It's about the notice of motion has been moved and seconded.
But the notice of motion is one that you're going to bring forward. Surely it should be a motion. That's what I'm asking.
It has,
I'm confused.
My understanding, it has become a motion, has it not, Ms. Campbell, once it was moved and seconded?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Those opposed? I have Director Elliott, Director Schaefer, Director Talarico. Is anyone else opposed? And that is carried. Takes us to question period. Are there any questions from members of the public? No? Well, that takes us to my favorite part. We stand adjourned.